Good evening, everyone. This is Kero Riri Paddle, and today I'm sitting down with Khrystarlite. Did I say that
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Khrystarlite.
That's it.
There we go. There we go. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about Pokemon. With the 25th anniversary just around the corner, I wanted to talk to people from all different walks of life and kind of get their view on the series, the franchise, the card game, the video games, or whatever they were into. Khrystarlite, can you tell me a little bit about you, what you do, and how you're into Pokemon?
As for me, I've been a fan of Pokemon since I was introduced to it by a cousin, and he had all the early movies on VHS and DVD, so we watched them together. And then he showed me his card collection, and the rest is history. After when the Game Boy Advance first launched, my dad basically got me and my sister that along with Pokemon games. I think it's around when they both launched, so it was like Ruby and Sapphire. They went with some of the color editions, uh, and since then, I've basically kept up with the series. Played at least one game from each generation. Played a few spin-offs here and there. Followed the anime for a while. Well, haven't watched that at all, but followed the major plot points. As for who I am personally, I'm as I say, a Silicon Valley brat. My dad was a Silicon Valley systems engineer, or from before the Google and all the other tech company takeovers. And after that, he was a QA tester. So I've got at least some ideas of how the software engineering world is. Not really software engineer myself, still a self-taught programmer. So I have some ideas on that end. Other than that, I also have some other things going for me, like was a child athlete for a specific sport, badminton. So, and not combative. It's like I have the perspective of someone who has had to literally grind for skills and strength, and also from the more teaching side and training side, have a little bit of experience of teaching and tutoring beginners of that same sport, badminton.
Wicked. Cool. I played badminton when I was younger. I wouldn't say I was very good at it, but I played for like 3 to 4 years. I really enjoyed it. Amazing
Uh,
sport.
well, like where I'm from, the Bay Area, it's basically the when badminton first started growing in the U.S., it was one of the two places that in LA where players flocked to get jobs and coaching and gyms started up. So I actually got professional coaching and lessons along with a lot of other people here.
Nice, nice. So you guys are really good at it then. That's really awesome to hear.
We're good, but it's kind of like that thing where, like, okay, badminton in the US is a lot lower than badminton everywhere else. Also, I'd say, like, as I am now with all that professional experience, I'm about middle school level compared to someplace like Japan. Like, I get my butt kicked by a middle schooler.
I see, I see. That's okay. Give it some time. You never know. The U.S. can play catch up, but
No, they are playing catch up. They're actually developing now. The thing about badminton is it's a very affluent sport if you're not in a third world country. So it's like you cost so much. So, and then in a poor country, if you're playing badminton, you're doing it because you're coming out of poverty. This is now your life.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a different dedication and level and stuff like that.
Thank you for sharing that. It's interesting to hear other people's perspectives on things outside of like just whatever I had them onto the show for. It's really cool just to like even hear that because I wouldn't have known that otherwise about badminton and how people perceive it in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk to you a little bit about Pokemon today. You already told us a bit about how you kind of got into it. Do you think you could tell us about the first generation that you played, maybe the first movie that you watched, some of your favorite Pokemon, and where you're at with the franchise today?
Okay, so I'll start with the movies because I actually started that first. I believe I actually saw the second movie first with my cousin, and then later, or we watched the first movie with Mewtwo. And then um, And then after that, my family even owned the first movie on DVD for a while. I think we gave it to charity later, though. First game. After the first game I played, that would be Gen 3. I played Sapphire. My sister got Ruby. Yeah, I remember that playthrough. It took me over a week to get past the clock, and then I only technically got past it because my sister did for me. So I wasn't very smart as a kid. And then, because of the way my parents were, which I should be very grateful for, I only really played 1 hour during the weekends. So for the first 3 months, it was literally me that hour. I just hit a new game each time and got to exam. That hour was up, and then and over. So then I restarted.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I eventually got to the point where, so I was really on and off for the first few years until, luckily, when I was in 5th grade, I basically got I made friends that were also Pokemon fans. They played, and that actually just motivated me to actually get farther. First playthrough, I actually wasted a Master Ball on a Skarmory because here's the funny story. So remember how I said my cousin showed me his card collection?
Yeah.
In the early Johto sets, there's this trinity of cards that actually have sheer card art. So Skarmory was featured alongside Ho and Lugia. So I originally thought it was a legendary.
Oh wow, that's so misleading. I could see why you would think that though.
I mean, it was good in like singles for the competitive scene back then for singles, but
yeah,
it's very misleading on that card thing. It's cool that it's featured there, but it's weird. So then I did a few resets. It's eventually, because of my friends and I didn't figure out on our own all the strategies of catching roaming Pokemon, I eventually reset just so I could catch a Latios with a Master Ball.
Okay.
And I still have that Latios. That's my favorite Pokemon.
Really?
It was funny bringing it into the newest generation because now I could see its IVs, and apparently there was a glitch so that any roaming Pokemon in Gen 3, the IV total mixed at 8. So that was like, wow, that's just... So I saw that's like, okay, thank you, hyper training.
Wow, I didn't know about that glitch. Okay.
I didn't know about it either. I found out 2 weeks ago.
Latios is your favorite Pokemon. Do you have any other favorites from that gen or later gens?
Yeah, of course, got a lot of favorites. On Reddit, there was this whole thing about favorite of every type, and I filled that out too. Other favorites, I like Latios, and there's a backstory I can get into on why I like the pair later. But I also like, what do I like? Hold on, give me a sec. I'm gonna bring up my image. Yeah, so I like all the starters from that gen, and from Gen 5, I really liked a lot of designs there, like Zekrom as a box legendary. Probably one of my favorite starter sets are from Gen 4. Actually like a lot of things from Gen 4. Like I really liked Drapion as a dark and poison type, and favorite fairy type which was an fairy before was Togekiss. All my favorites are from Gen 3 and 4, but I've never really disliked anything, and they're favorites from every gen. Yeah.
Cool. Togekiss is one of my favorites too. Togekiss, Porygon Z, Weavile, like those evolutions, or like the alternate evolutions, like Gallade or Frostlass.
Yeah, their Gen 4s were great, and like it's interesting to see in the Reddit communities. Like it's one of those things that was either hit or miss with you. Like a lot of people don't like the new evolutions. I like them. I didn't care about Electivire until I saw it in motion in the anime.
That's true. It does kind of add to the character as well when you can see them in action.
Yeah.
So you started off with Gen 3. Gen 3 and 4 is kind of where you find a lot of your favorites. And you also have a background and a strong understanding with software programming.
Not exactly strong. It's like I understand it in a better sense because my dad would talk about it. I'm not a software engineer. I'm more like a psychologist. It's that I studied cognitive science in university, so but I am at least aware of it. And so it's like I can't talk to you about specific nuances, but I can tell like, yeah, this is a lot of work. I would be more like, yeah, that's a lot more complicated and a lot more work than you think it is. This kind of thing.
Okay. Well, If that's the case, do you think you would be able to give your opinion on what a lot of people are saying for in regards to the most recent generations, that as Pokemon has become more popular and more accessible, the gameplay, while it looks great, it sounds great, it's overall a better packaging than before, but the gameplay is very handholdy. I personally find it much easier than before, but I don't know. Like, is that a direction that you think Nintendo is going in on purpose to bring in more younger users, or is that just kind of like the trade-off? By increasing everything else, you have to kind of like decrease research and development and gameplay advancement?
It's a weird thing because the thing about the gameplay advancement, a lot of things. I think a lot of people, their concerns and their gripes and all those other things, they're all very well founded. There are problems with a lot of the recent things such as hand holdiness. However, um, there are a number of other problems that go into why certain things are the way they are. And I think from a very functional standpoint, it's good. But if we're talking about like certain things like hand holding and ease for the main campaign, absolutely, there is a lot of ease, and there are a lot of poor design things. I've actually talked to this about this before with some other people. It's an interesting thing, but I think the thing that is mainly holding back Pokemon, the main series games, is the release cycle. I'm with a lot of people on that. Like, there's not enough time to implement all the ideas people want, the developers want. Especially because of I like to look at it like this: like every first game on a new console is always the worst in their generation. That was always the same with any gen, including like Gold, Silver, or Ruby, Sapphire, Diamond, Pearl. The most solid one, I believe, is I agree with most people is Black, White, but there were still certain design problems. So for some of those games, like Diamond and Pearl, there was a lot of technical problems that hold it back. But on the other, compared to the how Gen 8 and the recent gens aren't as technically problematic, the overall design and the actual gameplay and campaign that did suffer. So it's like it's wonder where the priorities are. It's kind of like the whole thing of trade-off of there's not enough time to do everything. Do you make everything stable and smooth, or do you make it that there are some things that are independent, that like the hand holdiness and cutscenes and all that other stuff. But I do think that, and that's part of the difficulty problem that we can get into later. But for things like linear design or like the route design being underwhelming, I think I would go in the fact that there's just not enough time, and that's the problem with the schedule again.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I miss seeing games released every 3 or so years. I miss there being not as many spin-offs and expansions, because while that's great and I understand from a business perspective why there's so much more games coming out than ever before, I can't help but feel that maybe they're not targeted towards me, but like I feel like there's an oversaturation, there's an overexposure, and like it feels very incremental. I've said to some other people who've come onto the show that like it feels like we're not getting a new generation. It feels like we're getting like a point 3 with a new skin on top of it, or like a point 5 and you just change the location and you like the I'm not saying the Pokemon are being recycled, but it feels like if we get 80 new Pokemon, only maybe 50 to 60 of them are really well thought out. But that's just my opinion.
I gotta have those regional fish.
Yeah, like I don't know, but like Nintendo is very good to their long running games, so I'm grateful because if you're into Pokemon, there's something for you in this franchise. You don't even have to play the main games. You could be into Pokemon Go, you could be into the movies. There's so many other aspects to it. You personally, is there anything else that you enjoy consuming from the Pokemon franchise now that's outside of the games?
Give me a minute. Um, as of right now, I've been meaning to go back to the anime and watch what I've missed. Because of I've actually followed the Reddit and number one, everyone on Reddit and the general consensus of things how things are going and all the conflicts going on. I've kind of decided like, okay, I stopped at Diamond Pearl Gen 4 with the anime, and I know that based on my preferences, I'm probably gonna like XY because that's one everyone holds up in high regard. So I'm gonna watch that last. I'm gonna watch the ones people don't like first.
Okay.
And to see how my perspective changes.
Okay.
Um, Other than that, not really official, but I do indulge in the occasional fanfic. Just to have like, okay, I want to read about something Pokemon. Give me an alternative story or something like that. It never really got into the cards. I respect it, but it's just never my thing. I was more of a Yu-Gi-Oh guy.
Okay. Yeah, I love Yu-Gi-Oh as well. Where I have the first tourney I ever won was with this card, and I always keep it near to me. It's my promo Shield Crush. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I always keep it near me. It's my lucky card. Hey, let's deviate from Pokemon a little bit. You said you play Yu-Gi-Oh. Are there any other card games, video games, or animes, series, or stuff that you're into?
So for a while, I mainly kept up with a lot of the child stuff. Like I've watched that. I keep up at least with the scene. I don't watch a lot of anime anymore. I kept up with Yu-Gi-Oh for a while. Oh, I've seen most of the Digimon. And what else is there? For card games, during university, my friends were really into Magic, so we all got like commander decks and occasionally we get around. What else? Video games. Play a few things. It's been a different spread. I was mainly an RPG guy, Kingdom Hearts, or it's Fire Emblem, etc. Don't play very many, but the games I play were out of them right now because of my current lifestyle. I really only game on my desk. When I'm not playing Pokemon, it's like I play on my desktop with my friends, certain games. That's about it. My friend's teaching me how to play Titanfall, which is interesting because it's the one shooter I can get into. But even though you would think I wouldn't, because couldn't play shooter before, used to have this really bad motion sickness problem, and Titanfall's so crazy, you'd think it'd be the worst, but it's the one that it's the one that doesn't make me sick.
Okay. Yeah, Titanfall is an interesting take on the shooter. I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
You also do fanfic. I really enjoy fanfics. For me, back in the day when we didn't have as much Pokemon content, I would go on like Cerebi and I would read like people's fanfics from the forums, or like I would go on like the main fanfiction sites and like just be very much into like people who would have ongoing series, like their own takes on it. I haven't really kept up with it as I've gotten older. What is the Pokemon fanfic world like, and how do you approach it as a writer? What kind of stories do you...
I'm not a writer yet. I've been reading more, but I am technically writing my first, because there's on the Pokemon fanfiction website, there's this small contest going on, and I want to try a different idea from what I've seen. And as from the story, as from a reader perspective and what's actually been going on, there's a lot of different things it depends on what you're looking for. Like most people actually prefer to do OC stories. Very few people, even though it's the most popular thing to write, and because it's the baseline everyone has, a lot of people don't actually like reading about trainers anymore. Like they'll always have your trainers, and you'll always have your like Ash stories. If you want a trainer, you usually follow Ash. I'm sure like Red or any of the manga characters, game characters. But for the most people, and people always write their own OCs, but a lot of people are kind of interested. There's so much more you can do, and there's so many more professions, right? Let's try and see what we can do with them. One of the more popular ones that I haven't read, but I know is popular, is about an isekai doctor. So he's like, okay, he's taking his medical and small veterinary knowledge and trying to practice medicine in the Pokemon world. The one that I'm working on for this contest, this delves from my badminton teaching experience. I'm trying to write about a move tutor, and the actual it's like, okay, how will it actually? How much work and effort will it take to actually teach something a weird move?
That's a really interesting premise.
Yeah, because like in the games, it's like it just hit the button. Yeah, your Pokemon has mastered the skill completely. It's like, and like for the gameplay that looks fine. For me, who has actually taught something, yeah, I'm gonna write about the taking a lot of time. Like I remember watching the anime and watching like Ash having to actually work a certain Pokemon's moves,
Yeah.
like teaching his Weasel Ice Punch, just work on it. It takes a lot of things, and I'm going to cover things that I don't. I'm planning on covering things that I don't think are usually covered, like what happens when someone does something wrong. How do you fix that?
That's a very interesting take. I can't wait to read that when it comes out. That would be something really awesome to read. I've liked that about fanfic as well because like I've always wanted a Pokemon game that was done from the perspective of like a gym leader when he encounters trainers or like the Elite Four, and like I want to see what they do in between when like they're not battling the main character. And we've never really gotten games like that. We've gotten like, you know, like Mystery Dungeon and Pokemon Ranger, but
Yeah.
I like what you're saying about like a move tutor. I also wonder like what would a Pokemon Center running that be like? What would it be like if you were Pokemon Daycare? And fanfic
Yeah.
I've always felt has like was that missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, that's being able to explore anything that isn't going to be explored in the main games and the main anime or series, because those are going to follow a protagonist, basically an anime protagonist going on doing their thing, saving the world, etc.
Yeah. It's sounds interesting though. Let's go to Nintendo a little bit. The direct just finished up,
Yep.
and I was disappointed as usual. But that's Nintendo Direct.
No Pokemon news, but there's always Pokemon Day. We'll see if there's actually something then.
I my fingers are crossed. We actually get something. Like we have to. It's the 25th anniversary. Like
If nothing else, they should at least do another trailer for Snap.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Snap was one of my favorite games growing up within Pokemon world. So
It was before my time, but it's like I appreciate it.
it was fun. It was like it's not the greatest game by any means. Even I knew that as a kid, but it was just cool. And I think like especially with Pokemon Go now, like people are interested in playing Pokemon but kind of like seeking it. And I would love to see like how they've changed the environments and how they really push the engine.
Yeah, it's like the key thing about Pokemon Snap back in the day, and what everyone's hoping they do again, is actually seeing Pokemon in a natural wild environment, how they interact with each other and the world. Well, that's what everyone's looking for, and that's what we're all hoping.
Take elements from Monster Hunter, Nintendo. Come on, just throw it into the game.
Yeah. Oh, well, that at least that trailer was good.
Yeah. Splatoon looks interesting as well. The new Splatoon.
Yep.
So about the difficulties of the games, and we're also on the topic of Nintendo. I think Nintendo right now, they're firing on all cylinders. People love the Switch. People love the games that are coming out. They're making up for the Wii U misstep. They're catching ground with Sony and Microsoft. I love the direction that they're going in. I wish they would still get move into the competitive scene more, but that's just not their bag. I don't know why they still refuse to. But what do you see for Nintendo going into the 20s with Pokemon and with their other titles?
So, from starting with Pokemon, from what I've heard from people linking articles and stuff, at least with Pokemon, apparently Game Freak has moved into the main office with them in HAL Laboratories. So there's going to be, theoretically, there's more collaboration and more supervision for higher quality stuff. So that gives a little bit more hope towards the optimistic side on things. As for other things, I'm eager to see what they do. Like, again, they didn't show anything on Breath of the Wild 2, but you're just wondering, how do they follow that up? How do you follow up a post-apocalyptic story with total freedom now that you have things like a companion? Are you going to make the companion, is Zelda going to be playable or a constant companion, or is she going to be sitting at home at home base? It's like another NPC.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are the consequences of other things? That's offers a lot of different sites. Nintendo's at least appreciating, like, they're running their audience, like how they're promoting No More Heroes again, and that's good. Could you ask the question again? And I need to refresh on what.
Yeah, no worries. You answered a good amount of it already, but like, how do you think Nintendo, with all of their popular titles and even with new IP that is going to be released, how do you think they're going to approach the market in the 20s?
How are they going to approach the market? I think they're gonna stay with what they've been doing. Like the directs have been fine. I don't know how they're gonna handle content creators. That's it's probably gonna stay the same. And sadly, as for how tackling the market, they have a good spread. And the key thing is that because the Switch is popular, other devs at least want in. So, like Nintendo themselves, they'll do what they keep doing. They'll keep advertising. They might have more directs now, which will be nice. They send other things like that.
I agree with you. I do like what they're doing now. I just wish that they would, like I think I said earlier, just get more competitive. You don't have to
Yeah.
compete with Sony with your engines for your games, but like aesthetically and soundtrack wise, Nintendo games are so incredible and they're very immersive. I want to see more of that. The same way Detective Pikachu was a popular release. I want to see them do more live action movies. I can't wait for a good live action Metroid movie. Sonic was popular. Is it maybe like a Pikmin adaptation for Netflix or like
And that'd be
Mario?
cool.
Like it would be great for them to actually take more chances because they have the money and they have the IPs. Why not do something
Yeah.
more with them?
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like they obviously have it. Like I understand why they don't from a theoretical side, like especially with any form of business, be it like trading stocks or anything else. Part of the business decision is the concept of minimizing loss if someone messes up along the way, if it's a total disaster, which is I think partially feeds into why Pokemon doesn't get enough funding. And also, like yes, they can make more, and I am amongst everyone. I'm like everyone else. We want them to do more, but I just understand like especially for an old Japanese businessman, and that risk is really high. We just need someone to prove to them or something like that that they can do more. Things aren't a one hit wonder. The question is also like, okay, they invest money. How are they sure that everything's as quality? And unfortunately, there's also the corporate capitalism of, okay, what is the return on investment? Is it a
Yeah.
stable community? Unfortunately, with Pokemon and Sword and Shield sales, that's not a good measure for them. From an objective standpoint, it's success. Sword and Shield successful. Well, that's all there is to it. It speaks. Money doesn't really speak to the quality. It just speaks to how much they make, etc. There are other things like at least on like competitive games, finally replacing the servers. From what I've heard, so it's like okay, theoretically things might get better,
Yeah.
but there's going to be because they are replacing servers. There's going to be a very awkward transition period. Um, it's just like you of course wish that Nintendo and all their IPs they do more with it, but there's is that whole thing of that risk for them. You want them to take the risk. Hopefully they do one day.
Yeah, I really do hope so because there is expectations for game releases now that mirrors or even dwarfs cinema releases, and especially now that we haven't been able to go see a movie, we haven't been able to go to big events, and it's looking like throughout this year it's going to be the same thing. We're not going to have those moments as people. Everyone's looking towards games. There's been so much talk about GTA 6 for so many years. People up until the release of Cyberpunk were talking about it being huge. I would love if Nintendo would get in on that and they would create, whether it's like I would prefer something new, but like whether it's the next Zelda game or it's like that big Pokemon game we've always wanted, that MMO style of game, that free roam style of game, I want Nintendo to actually create their masterpiece. They create really amazing games, but you can tell it's from like a more consumerish standpoint. They want to tide you over until the next sequel or the next release, and sometimes I play a game and it doesn't feel complete. It feels like they were focusing more on the aesthetic and more on just giving us a product for now and not so much creating a timeless masterpiece. And maybe that's just too much of my expectations, but I also know that like Donkey Kong, the Metroid, as I mentioned earlier, you have a lot of the fighting games. You have all the N64 games, Perfect Dark. You had GoldenEye. Like throughout so many eras of Nintendo, there were great releases, but I feel like we don't really have that sort of excitement for their releases anymore. How do you feel?
Yeah, for part of it is going older. Part of it is that they're once again at the forefront of their, or there's there's just so much great that it's like it feels like anything less, and there are has been actually objectively a lot of things less as things are falling flat. You just like want them to do more. You want them to be epic. You want them to do that amazing thing. Um, it's kind of weird, again, with that whole risk analysis thing. I've actually given this a weird amount of thought towards like, what will it actually cost to make something like this? And there are a number of problems again with certain things like, okay, how many workers do they need to hire for this? How many managers do they need to hire? What's the fallout for like things that when things go wrong? They can do a great magnum opus and like a great thing. Which IP would it be? What will they actually do that isn't been done? What will actually have the Nintendo charm? There are a lot of these weird questions. Hence, I think the problem again is as a Japanese company, Nintendo's like, with a few exceptions, they're stuck in that safe zone because it minimizes loss. That's the key aspect. Like, we see their profits, great. We see how much they end up losing, like with the Wii U era. Okay, that's a problem. They can do it, and we all know that they are perfectly capable, or they actually have the funding to outsource something. But there are other things to take into consideration. Well, one thing that I've part of it is the Switch hardware, but other things like part of the thing I've been seeing a lot of is like a lot of people showing off what they can do with something like Unreal Engine 4, which is something that Nintendo themselves aren't going to indulge in. They're going to make their own engine because that means they have more control. If anything goes wrong, it's their own fault. It's like it's this weird thing where it's like, okay, you can outsource for a lot of things, but that's also what we call an ingress point. A lot of things to juggle. I've mainly been talking about a lot of other things, but I agree. There's something that you want Nintendo. We just want Nintendo to do more, of course. But there's a lot of things behind the scenes we just don't know about.
Yeah, good point though. Okay, I have a couple more questions.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say are some of your favorite Pokemon communities online?
So I do follow a few YouTubers. Mainly, I really follow the ones that are kind of more positive. I don't really follow, and they're more into the theoretical things. I don't really follow too many like hardcore Nuzlockers or just stuff like that. I did start following False Swipe Gaming and Wolfie VGC because to get a glimpse into that competitive scene and to understand what's going on there. As for other Pokemon things online, I've kind of started participating in the Reddit communities, but it's like kind of like, okay, it's like anything else online. There are echo chambers. There's the people want to what they want to look at and see what they want to hear, and want to find like-minded people. Well, so it can be. I look at it the same way as I look at fan fiction. It takes a lot to find something worthwhile or something interesting or educational in these different on Reddit as it is to find a good fanfic. But there are a lot of the key point is to try and find something that works for you. Honestly, for an online community, not like as a global thing on Reddit, but the best online community I've actually encountered is my town's local Pokemon Go community.
Really?
Yeah, because everyone's just like, okay, there's of course the people who like to show off and stuff, but there's like, hey guys, there's a raid, you want to hop on? And it's just like this community thing, like, okay, thanks guys, let's all work together, we can do this. Like maybe that's because it's small still. Well, that's part of it. When things get as large as a Reddit community, you're just going to have a lot more people with a lot more diverse opinions, and who are more stubborn about that, less open, and because they are surrounded by people with like-mindedness. On a different note, because we both talk about fan fiction, I wouldn't say that the particular like FFnet or anything, more the fanfic community sites and readers are a very good community, but the actual subreddit there is very chill and very open to things. Like there is of course their own preferences, like very a good chunk of them don't like are biased towards liking the whole OCs rather than following something like Ash and the trainer story. That's very common, but they're very supportive of their own. They're very supportive and very helpful towards other writers. It's very interesting thing on that front. Um, the specific Pokemon Sword and Shield community, for if you want to do anything liking the Gen 8 games, they're very nice. It's r/Pokemon Standard, you're gonna have everyone, so you're gonna have a lot of people complaining about everything. They're all valid complaints, but if you don't want to listen to complaining, it's not a good place to be.
I see. Well, thank you for sharing that. If there's always going to be issues and gatekeeping and all those problems with online communities. I have one more question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How has Pokemon personally affected your life?
It's been a good constant, like any other video game series is that I've kept up with, but Pokemon's always been the one I'm able to pick up and play. Like again, I've played at least one game from each mainline generation, and except for 7, I have both. I have one of each version there, but I was in university when that came out, so I didn't have time. It's always a constant. I met my first child. I basically have a bond with my first childhood best friend. That's why Latios and Latios are my favorite Pokemon, because we actually each caught one and then we kind of shipped them. Kept sticking in the daycare, and for some reason, even though they're both legendaries, they didn't hate each other. They actually liked each other.
Wow.
There was never an egg, but still.
Yeah.
So yeah, I still have that Latios. What else? Let's see. It's an odd thing because when we talk about the anime, it's a very common thing for common fans to rag on how before the Sun and Moon anime, like Ash sucks because he never won a league. I told you I was a competitive badminton player. She has better results than I do. I was that bad. So I'm like thinking, for me, this is just like, okay, every loss, yeah, I felt this. I've been through this. This is more relatable. Oh, this is more relatable than protagonist man win in first try. So I actually get something out of Ash more than I get something out of like the concept of Red.
Okay.
There's that. It's good to have a baseline to talk to people about things. If nothing else, at least someone's heard about Pokemon, and if they haven't, it's not that bad. Usually, most of the time, if they're actually interested in learning. What else? That's about it, though. Oh, it's kind of just then like constant. It's also interesting, like depending on what phase I was in my life, I cared about different things. Like growing up, I definitely cared more about the main campaign, and how the difficulty of like beating something like Cynthia and Gen 4, or how much I liked the story of Gen 5, even the whole rivalries. As I've gone older, I've kind of outgrown that to the point, like it's still something that's missing from a lot of the newer games. I won't argue with anyone on that, but the main campaign doesn't matter to me as much because of my current lifestyle. Like right now, because I'm between jobs and when I'm not applying, I'm like basically studying and working on a personal project. My downtime is basically, I don't have time for a campaign. I just aim. So like with the current Gen 8s, like I'm actually really into the whole occasional shiny hunting and X-Max grade battles and stuff. And basically I have time, I'd be going once, I'm done. After that, I see what I get, I'm done. And for the day, I'm done for that break period. It just fits my lifestyle.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I have to say this was really nice talking to you. It was great to get your perspective, and you offered a lot of interesting points that I actually never thought about or even knew about in regards to Pokemon, and hearing about how it impacted your life and even the connection that you have with your childhood friend. That's so cool to me, and that's amazing. Like Pokemon has brought so many people together, and I have many friends that I met through Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh that I still have to this day. So I definitely know the sentiment. I want to say thank you for coming on to my show. I really appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you for having me.
No problem.
Nice meeting you as well.
Thank you. Guys, this was Kero Riripado. I sat down with Khrystarlite. Do you have anything that you would like to plug?
No, I'm good for now. I don't really do anything content creating online. I will when I eventually publish that Move Tutor fanfic. I'll send you a link I'll email you a link.
Please do. I really look forward to reading it. I'm sure it's going to be very interesting.
I don't really. I'm probably not gonna publish it on Cerebi. It'll probably be both on like FFnet or AO3 or both. I'll just link those to you.
Okay, sounds good. Awesome. Guys, that was the show. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate your time. Everyone, take care of yourselves.